Hey ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Mel Herbert here for Talking Tesla. Look, I'm outside, the transitional lenses are dark, so it's making me look cool, I'm sure. Look, I wanted to talk very quickly about a report from the Union of Concerned Scientists, and it's to do with the cost of driving EVs. Now, the Union of Concerned Scientists is an independent group of scientists which was actually formed in Massachusetts from MIT faculty and students in 1969 in response to the Vietnam War, in response to the fact that Cleveland's river had been lit on fire again. And they concern themselves with environmental issues and health issues. And again, as independent scientists and now as a non-profit that's been going for a long time, I personally support them and their mission. So they come out with reports looking at sort of questions of the environment and energy from a scientific point of view without all the politics and without the influence of the oil and gas and motor industry. So one of the things they just reported on is whether EVs are actually cheaper than gas cars. There's two mythologies that are out there right now. One of them is that EVs aren't actually cleaner than ICE cars, which is absolutely ridiculous. We'll talk about that at a later time. But also that EVs are not any cheaper to drive around than ICE cars. And in this report, they actually go into some detail about that. So let me give you the summary of this report, and it goes like this. Here in the United States, on average, EVs are about half the price to run in terms of the fuel costs than comparable ICE cars. If you look at the cost of electricity, if you look at the cost of gasoline, about half the price. In fact, they talk about an e-gallon equivalent. So they sort of turn electricity into what it would be equivalent in terms of gas. And they say you basically drive around in an EV on average for about 90 cents per gallon of gas, as it were, although it's not gas. Does that make sense? So gas here in the United States is between $2 or $3 right now, and it fluctuates a lot. But on average in the US, you can do it for about 90 cents. That's charging at home. If you've got time of use, you can get that down to about 45 cents, and in some cases as low as 24 cents on average. So 24 cents equivalent driving around, pretty cheap, right? Super cheap. And in fact, if you've got solar panels and you've paid them off, you essentially are zero. Now, if you're in a public charging station, they note that it varies a little bit. Some public charging stations are free to you. Some of them you have to charge, you have to put your credit card in, and so it's quite variable in that instance. But for charging at home in general, half the price. They also note that it is significantly less to maintain an electric car than it is an ICE car, to the tune of hundreds to many thousands of dollars per year. The upfront cost, buying the electric car, generally is about $4,000 more for the electric version than the ICE version of a car, but after incentives, state, local, federal, that often just zeroes that out, or in some cases makes the electric car significantly cheaper than the ICE car equivalent. Here's two Teslas behind me. There's not a gas equivalent of these, so you can't really do the math in that area. So what are their conclusions? Well, they say this: EVs reduce harmful emissions for transportation and can protect drivers from high-end unpredictable fuel prices, because electricity is stable, gas prices not stable, very unpredictable. Both the number of EV models available and the rate of EV sales are growing, an encouraging indication of the transition from petroleum to cleaner fuels like electricity. Policymakers, automakers, and electric vehicle providers can accelerate this transition, and they go on to suggest a number of things that policymakers could do. For example, continue to have these incentives, to have manufacturers produce more and more interesting electric vehicles, trucks, and other things. And a number of other things that they suggest. From a public health point of view, this is way better. Now, a lot of people say, I can't afford an electric vehicle because it's too much. Well, they're saying here that the cost really is, at this point, it's less for an electric vehicle. The upfront cost is a bit more, but with the speed with which battery prices are dropping, and what we've learned with the Tesla Semi and where battery prices are going to be in the next few years from Tesla, then it looks like that electric cars will cost the same or less than ICE cars very soon, and then driving them is going to be less, maintenance is going to be less, and so we're right at that transition point where an electric car is going to be significantly less to buy and to run than a comparable ICE car. And we'll talk soon about whether it's truly cleaner than an ICE car. And spoiler alert, yeah, it is. It's a lot cleaner. My name's Mel Herbert, and the show is Talking Tesla.